Welcome to the Brotherly Ballers podcast with your hosts, Jack Vickers and Tyler Herman.
We're back, baby. What up, Pod Squad? Ballers. I don't want to say Ball Squad. We are coming back for an off-season edition of the Brotherly Ballers. If you don't know, if you're not familiar, this is Season 9's official kickoff, Season 9, Episode 1. Apparently, according to my very poor record keeping, it's Episode 143. Most of those episodes I was not a part of in the beginning. Shout out to Alan Walters, and then I came in, and then Walters abandoned me, so I ran to Tyler for emotional support. So here we are. But if you're not familiar with us, or if you haven't listened a ton in the past, it's a podcast run by two brothers about some fantasy footballness. So Dynasty primarily, because we love that, but redraft, including all of your unique weird leagues. So we've got auction stuff we cover, guillotine, superflex, DFS, pretty much any. I'm trying to get a vampire league going this year. That's like the only thing that we haven't ever done. So we'll see. And then we try to do some non-football related stuff just to keep things light and debate on things that don't have right or wrong answers, just because why not? So as I mentioned, Season 9 premiere officially. So thank you to those of you who supported us last season. We're getting it going here kind of in the off season. We're going to be on monthly episodes, so not super intense, but a little bit of stuff to talk about as big events come up, like the draft and off-season signings and all that stuff. So hopefully we helped out some of you guys winning your titles last year. We got some new stuff coming this off-season to keep things busy. So a little bit of dynasty coverage, different ads, drops, risers, and fallers for fantasy football, potentially an initial game episode, last place punishment, interview episode, and mock drafts once we get into the season. But there's enough about that. So Tyler, welcome back. How's it going? How's it coming back to the show?
Oh, it feels good. If football feels so back. I mean, being able to sit and watch the draft and kind of react live is always fun. You never know what's going to happen, but now you get to enjoy an entire summer of people dissecting landing spots and what OTAs look like. So this is every Dynasty person's dream. So we're going to have some fun today.
Yeah, that's the best part. The initial days of free agency signings where it just ruins half your team and you're like, oh my God, but what if this guy goes here? Wouldn't it be great? And it never happens. So
correct.
So yeah, we're going to get into a lot of that stuff. So we got a lot to cover. I'll speed things along, but if you haven't already, check us out on YouTube. If you click the subscribe button, that'd be really, really cool. I think we're up to 130, so we feel sort of legit because we have our own handle. So that's nice. But yeah, tell a friend, share an episode, or better yet, comment on something so that like we have a month to talk about next month's episode, and we can actually like bring your stuff up. Or if you want us to say, hey, check out my 4 or 5 picks from my rookie draft, how did I do? Or what would you give my team's ranking in our dynasty league, something like that. Like if you got startup drafts coming up, stuff like that. So we would love to interact with real leagues, but for now we'll just come up with whatever we have in our own and be selfish. So we're a little mini one. I don't have a ton of crazy stuff, but we like to have this segment. I don't know how the soundboards work in Tyler's new fancy computer, but
let's find out.
We got This Ish is Bananas. So this is our section for anything wacky or crazy fantasy football / NFL football fun facts. So not necessarily always fantasy relevant, but stuff that just kind of stands out and had to share. So a lot of it was very draft focused of like, this team hasn't drafted a left tackle since 2014. I'm like, I don't care. So these are the 3 that stood out. They were very contract related from the off season, but react with these, Tyler, what you will. The Bengals are now paying more to 3 players than the entire 2013 NFL salary cap.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. I mean, it seems like if you're going to pay 3 people, they paid the correct 3 people. There's no question about that. So keeping that core together for a long time seems pretty smart. I mean, their defense can't do anything, and they're going to continue to not be able to do anything. But here we are. So go Bengals. That's all we care about in fantasy world. So you did great.
Yeah, it's just crazy how much the salary cap continues to increase year after year too, where it's like you give these quarterbacks big extensions and it's like already outdated in 2 years because it's risen, exponentially. So another one based off the contracts, but the 9 highest paid quarterbacks have a combined 0 Super Bowl wins. So oof.
Yeah,
you got to pay your guy to hope he wins, but
yeah, again, I mean, it goes exactly to your last point. We didn't realize that the Chiefs were getting a deal by signing Mahomes to $500 million. They were like, hey, that's insanity. And now, whatever, a handful of years later, we're like, oh, he's not even in the top 10 of paid quarterbacks on an annual basis. So weird. Touche, Chiefs. Pay your people early.
Yeah, apparently they knew something everybody else did not. So
yeah.
And then they're just going to restructure every single year and move money around and like the McVay magician Fugazi that it won't matter anyway.
Yep.
And then lastly, Aaron Rodgers at $380 million career earnings and Matt Stafford at $364, but he's due $27 million, so that put him up to $391, are both closing in as the first NFL player ever to ever make $400 million in their career contractually.
That's pretty crazy, honestly. I mean,
Yeah.
just Tom Brady played in a different era where contracts weren't like this. They just weren't near as high. And obviously, we talked through all that with salary cap increases and inflation and whatnot. But I mean, as much as I hate Aaron Rodgers, I mean, two very well deserving guys to be close to that threshold based on their careers. So I mean, I can take that. Nothing makes me happier than Stafford having gotten his ring.
Yeah, agreed. He's hard not to like. He's the inverse of Rodgers for sure.
Yeah.
And it makes more sense because he doesn't have quite as long of a career as Rodgers, but he like was in an era where the Lions had nothing, and they're like, "We'll just give you $40 million because we got to spend the money somewhere." So
yeah,
it shows both with like the people earning less, and then also like the Brady factor. He's one of the only ones longevity wise that could have been up there, but he took deals so many years that like it just makes sense that he didn't. So yeah, that's it for the issues bananas, but a few fun facts. Hopefully we'll have some more once the rookie stuff starts coming out and we watch the offseason. But if you have any of your own that come across Twitter, because that's where I get all of mine when I'm bored, let us know. Moving into the bulk section stuff, we're going to go into NFL news and we're going to do our Vikings 60-second synopsis, which I will tell you right now is going to be probably more than 60 seconds, but
it will.
We're going to start
with
the end. Moving on. We're going to start with the draft recap. So for just the Vikings, because we're selfish, we'll get into all the fantasy relevant rookies later. Tyler, did you watch the draft? We'll start with that.
Yeah, I did. I watched the entire first round. I watched most of the most of the second and third rounds. I didn't quite watch the tail end of the third round. That didn't seem necessary. But yeah, I watched every pick of the first round. So it was very interesting, and we were talking back and forth throughout the whole thing. So I mean, I guess we did okay, and we'll get into it here in just a second. But I thought we were certainly going to go a different direction than we did.
Did you have an initial, I know we kind of talked off camera, but did you have initial gut feelings of where we were leaning first round or otherwise?
I mean, we talked about it entirely last season as well, and I think we overperformed to it, and we could still go be so much better. But it seemed like we should have addressed the defensive side of the ball more so than we did. I mean, obviously, at the end of the day, protecting McCarthy is such a perfect thing to do, but I just thought with some of the defensive liabilities and so many people leaving on that side of the ball, that's absolutely where I thought we would be going. And as we'll talk about, I'm sure, here in a second, there was value on the defensive side of the ball that dropped, and we still didn't go that route. So it pained me.
Yeah, agreed on that. I know there was a bad run for the Vikings right before 24 where there was a couple of corners and some high potential guys that did go. Two other guards went before our pick. I know a couple of interior D linemen went. So maybe there was just that product of like, I kind of fell wrong. We're just pivoting to our best player available kind of thing. My only takeaway from leaning to not going guard initially was just because we did such a good job spending the money on the interior or on the offensive line in the offseason, where I was like, if you got one weak spot, technically, I feel like the other guys can cover for that or account for that and make it look okay. Yeah. Granted, doing what we did and locking up, hopefully, all 5 spots will feel great. Like then you don't really have a weakness anywhere and everybody can kind of handle an island on their own. But that was my only thought of like, you can kind of fill the gaps. Whereas like secondary, where I thought we were going to go is everybody's very much on an island and you can't hide that. So maybe they're just feeling really, really good with the guys we have coming up that we'll talk about in a bit. And then also our pass rush is probably going to be much better. So maybe that'll just make the secondary better. Regardless, as far as the first pick, we'll get into that goes because that was the only pick in the first 2 rounds we had. So not a lot of picks in general, which definitely makes it feel less exciting. It's hard to really give a team like a great grade when you don't have a lot of picks, but we'll talk about a few impact guys here. So namely, on 24, guard Donovan Jackson out of Ohio State. Didn't know a ton about him previously, but of course, like any diehard fan scout, I've been following Twitter like crazy now, trying to get some info on him. So everything we've read has been very, very elite tape at guard, and then his teammate went down kind of towards the end of the season, and he just no problem slid right over to left tackle and performed very well there too. I think he had a bumpy first game, but 4 straight games there where he had, I think, 4 total pressures and was by all metrics PFF wise really, really good. So the fact that he can play both, I think maybe is what, in my opinion, led us to putting him higher because we got the Darisaw injury where we don't know if he's going to be ready for training camp or the start of the season. So it's kind of a guy where it's now you have a much better fill in for left tackle. And then when Darisaw is ready, who's at the Pro Bowl level, hopefully this year you can slide this guy back to guard. So we'll see. That's the initial takes I have. It sounds like he was a guy that we were really high on and was rated correctly there. So wasn't a reach by any means.
Yeah, agreed. I think from what I've read and from what I've seen in the handful of college football games that I watch when it comes to Ohio State, try to avoid doing that because, fuck Ohio State, but here we are. But a very good guard at both run and pass blocking. So I think that's kind of what you mentioned, not only the position versatility, but being good on both of those things. I think it led us to that versus one of like the safeties or the corners that were there. So I think we got somebody who's going to be a long-term, obviously somebody on the offensive line to help keep our rookie upright. Well, I guess not a rookie anymore, but you know what I'm saying.
Essentially. So yeah.
Essentially.
The one that stood out for me, 816 offensive snaps last season per Pro Football Focus, 2 total sacks allowed, including at left tackle where he wasn't familiar, and 12 total hurries. So, that's very, very minimal where he's given pressure up the middle, which if anybody who watched the Lions in the Rams game, we got destroyed in that. So they're not messing around. They definitely overcorrected of like, this will not happen again. I mean, feels exciting because that's the first time I can remember in my fandom life career of watching the Vikings that we've ever had like an offensive line where I've felt this confident in across the board. So we will see. Moving into day 2, our only pick of day 2 was in the 3rd round, and we, at least to me, surprisingly went Ty Felton, wide receiver out of Maryland. I'm not familiar with him, so I'm guessing you are a little bit more than me, but
No, yeah, I mean, not a whole lot. I'm with you, especially for a 3rd rounder. I think you kind of hit it on the head. He's a speedy deep threat guy. He's not like a super nuanced route runner or anything like that. He's much more of a burner. So I think he's going to be exactly like you're about to mention. He's a very good complement to what we already have. We've got 2 individuals who have very good route running with JJ and Addison and can make those perfect breaks. And now we've got somebody who can at least take the top off the defense and maybe take a little bit of pressure off that. So, he's a fine ad, but again, I just thought we were going to address other needs, but hey, it is what it is. Hopefully he'll fit in and help that offense, and can't complain about getting, I guess, what you call another weapon from McCarthy.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a bad pick by any means. I just never would have expected wide receiver being one of our focuses because, our wide receiver 3 is probably one of the weaker ones in the league. Like, we have very, very top-heavy wide receiver room, but then it's still been very solid with just Jefferson and Addison. So wasn't expecting it, but it's exciting that they're, going all around McCarthy and kind of being like, our defense is good enough where it's at. Let's just give them the weapons and give them the protection. So we skip round 4 and then we move into round 5 where we take defense. We went edge, which wasn't expecting, but it's out of Georgia. Tyrion Ingram Dawkins, edge rusher out of Georgia. So, they always have very, very solid defensive players molded and developed down there. So sounds like he's kind of a hybrid. He plays end in 3-man and D tackle in 4-man. So that's nice having some of that versatility. More of a speedy, explosive guy. Apparently he had the fastest shuttle time for all defensive tackles, if you rated him that way, and then 3rd for all defensive linemen, period. So over any other end or edge rusher. So very, very fast dude.
Yeah, no question. And so I'll wrap him right in with Kobe King just to keep things running, who was our 6th round pick, a linebacker out of Penn State. It seemed like, interestingly enough, from the tape that I've watched and seen and heard, it seemed like they're both more so run stoppers than like, hey, holding somebody up and getting to the pass block. So we know that the speed and the motor is going to be there. So if we can get after teams, great, and disrupt that. But it seemed like they were more gap fillers and run stoppers than anything on the pass rush side. So again, we will see, but I would have rather had the pass rush. But at the same time, you can't complain about speed on defense.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of just seems like you're just taking athletes at that point and
exactly
figuring out we'll find a spot for them because we're not short on edge rushers as it is, and the 2 D tackles we signed are both known as pass rush interior linemen. So maybe it's just confident that we're going to get pressure from there already. So, and then lastly, rounding out another 6th round pick, Gavin Bartholomew, tight end out of Pitt. I don't know anything about him. I'm not going to pretend that I do not. So I'd just be repeating whatever anybody else said. Good depth for a tight end spot. We kind of talked about overall thoughts, so I won't repeat this a ton, but I'm very, very shocked that not only not in the 1st, but not at all did we ever go secondary at any point. It's exciting seeing us do something differently than we normally do, because I feel like there was a past generation with Zimmer where we just always took a 1st-round corner, and they always pretty much ended up doing nothing. So maybe corner's harder to hit on, and we're like, we're just going to get a blue chip, beefy offensive lineman and know that it's a lock, and we'll figure it out from there. Or maybe we'll sign somebody else now post-draft to avoid the whole extra draft pick issue. So that's kind of what I'm waiting to see.
Yeah, agreed. And I think for me, the biggest one was, again, just the value that was still there. I mean, seeing then one of the biggest needs, in my opinion, was going to be safety, right? With so much changeover happening there. And then we're sitting at 24, and Malachi Starks was
That's
still
what I was-
there and
yeah.
was brutal to see him then go just a couple picks later. So I could get it with like Will Johnson and not going corner with the potential knee issue and
Injury,
things like
yeah.
that as well. But I mean, Maxwell Hairston was still there from Kentucky, who was the obvious consensus other one right there, probably third somewhere in there. But Malachi Starks was the slam dunk number one safety at a position of need for us. So I think that one hurt the most. Again, being down here and seeing the Georgia boy, it's hard to not have him be a Viking right now.
Yeah, especially like when I just mentioned a second ago, like you always know Georgia seems to be very, very safe for defensive guys.
Yeah.
And I remember I texted Jordan at the time too, where as soon as we didn't take him, and I was like, I feel like the Ravens are going to take him. This is Kyle Hamilton all over again.
Exactly.
I was so upset. So yeah, I mean, they obviously know more than we know. So maybe they just feel really good about some of these guys. Like we're going to talk about like Theo Jackson stepping up and everything in the absence of Bynum and Metellis still being there and re-signing some of our corner room, and maybe we're going to make another move. So maybe they just feel good where we're at. But I was very surprised that not even like with a toss in third or fifth did we go that way. So we shall see. Continuing the Vikings side of things, we're going to go through the offseason moves fairly quickly because some of these are outdated. So I'm not going to give you fantasy reactions on every single person that went to another team, for example, but we'll kind of hop in maybe more for the additions because those are exciting. So subtractions, I'll just run through, and Tyler, if you want to give a point or two on any of these overall. But guys we lost this offseason, two other teams, that sounds really morbid. Sam Darnold, Cam Bynum, Daniel Jones, Nick Mullins, the entire QB room basically. Johnny Munt, Pat Jones, who's an outside linebacker for us, and then Garrett Bradbury we cut at center formally. So any standouts or thoughts from you there?
No, I mean, it is what it is. But we're a fantasy podcast, so people come in and out. So it is what it is. I mean, I'm not surprised we let Darnold walk. We obviously knew McCarthy was going to be the future. So we'll see how the offense looks, but is what it is. Such as the world, still a business. But I think we refilled and re-signed enough to not do too bad this offseason.
Cam Bynum made me really sad because I really like him as a player, but I get the money, how it just made sense, and at least we did stuff elsewhere for it. But yeah, Darnold, I was saying all end of the season, I'm like, even if he played well and didn't have those duds, because it's easy to say in hindsight then, even if not, it just didn't make sense to give him the money. And I think he lost himself a few million because he ended up with like 27 or 28 million a year. But it's nice to just commit to be like, we're 100% guaranteed. There's no question of like, well, do we pivot back to Darnold? So re-signing our own players, got Harrison Smith back again for another 1-year deal for what seems like the 10th time that's happened. Byron Murphy, big contract for him. Aaron Jones, re-signed, 2-year deal. Ryan Wright, our punter, who was great last year, and then Theo Jackson, safety, who they really talked big about a lot. Didn't get to show a lot of his stuff until Harrison missed a few games, but looks really, really good and promising according to the coaching staff. So, and then moving into additions, new guys. So I'll just, I guess, I'm going to mention all of them, and then we can give thoughts after that.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing too crazy as far as names on here for relevance, a bunch of players.
But Vikings wise, 2 D tackles, I'll combine them together that we upgraded big time. Javon Hargrave and then Jonathan Allen out of San Fran and Washington. Both older guys, but both have 2 Pro Bowl years in the last 3 to 4 years. Hargrave really only got hurt last year. He played in all 15 plus games in all 8 seasons previous to that. And then Allen is known specifically as an elite pass rusher as far as D tackles. So you don't usually get a lot of that pass rush from the interior. So that might look very different because I don't know how you're going to handle that and our edge rushers that made life terrible for everybody last year.
Yeah, exactly like you mentioned. So I think having those 2 signings on there could potentially be one of the reasons that we didn't go more heavily. I mean, granted, obviously line versus secondary. So still would like to see it, but I mean, hey, is what it is.
It's exciting to build off of what was already our strength last year. So but now the front 7 is just a nightmare. Putting these 2 together on the opposite side of the line, Ryan Kelly, center, coming over from the Colts, and then Will Fries, also from the Colts. Kelly's a 4-time Pro Bowler. He's 31. He was ranked in PFF still as 5th best among center in pass block last year. So still has it. And I think it's more of kind of like that savvy veteran who, as a center, is going to be able to call out protections and like direct the rest of the young line. So, and then Will Fries kind of feels like that, like up and coming potential Pro Bowler who hasn't hit his peak yet for a guard. He's 27. He was injured in week 5 out of last year and missed a good amount of time. So again, kind of coming off of an injury, but in his 41 starts through, I believe 41 games, through his career so far. He has 31 starts. So has been very, very consistent before that. And also is obviously going to have great chemistry with Ryan Kelly. So that's helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Getting your center and your guard from the same team coming over is always helpful.
Moving into a couple of other smaller name guys, Isaiah Rodgers, cornerback. He is a good kick returner, good special teams player. Looked it up and it said PFF ranks him 24th out of 116 cornerbacks last year. And I was like, okay, obviously that's good, but like, who are some other guys around him? Looked up a couple in the area, and the first one that stuck out to me was Byron Murphy, who's 22 out of 116. So 22 and 24, we consider Byron Murphy very, very good and gave him the huge contract. If we can get similar production, that suddenly feels like a pretty solid corner too. So him, Jeff Okudah, corner, kind of taking a lottery shot on a former top 5 pick from the Lions, who's bounced around since then. Eric Wilson, linebacker, who spent time with us in the beginning of his career, then went to Green Bay, is returning. So that's kind of a nice third option after Cashman and Ivan Pace. So that's exciting there. Rondale Moore, wide receiver. I kind of liked this pickup as a sneaky one, even just to compete with Naylor for the wide receiver 3 before we drafted our couple of other rookies in the draft. And then kind of the other surprising one, Jordan Mason trading from the 49ers to come over here and back up / split time, maybe with Aaron Jones. So I think that one could be interesting fantasy relevant wise.
Yeah,
so
agreed.
Foster, apparently, just
yeah. Well, we'll get into that, but Foster jumped in with both feet. He's like, Aaron Jones always hurt. They said Jordan Mason's going to get the goal line work, and we're in 2 dynasty leagues with him, and my man traded away his 2027 first-round picks in both of them to make sure that he got Jordan Mason. We shall see. I hope it works out for him.
We need to get him a jersey for Jordan Mason ASAP because he's all in.
Yeah.
But I do think he could be sneaky because Aaron Jones misses time, and they clearly don't want to give him as much. And I really expected the Vikings to do a day 3 pick on a running back, and they didn't. So, I mean, it's just going to be great. It says a lot to Jordan Mason for me that they're doing that. So,
yep.
All right, that's pretty much all the big hitters as far as the Vikings goes. So let us know your thoughts of your Vikings fans like us, how you're feeling, what you'd give us. A draft grade, off-season grade. I think off-season is an A for me, but a draft is probably just like a C+ if I'm being non-biased because we didn't have a lot to work with. Moving into non-Vikings, non-Homer stuff, we're going to go through some rest of teams' fantasy off-season moves, and then we're going to get into the rookie draft, which is what everybody wants to talk about. So I'm going to go position by position here. I'll give you the few notable guys that went from one team to another, and you're just going to give me positive, negative, or neutral, and I'll speak up if I disagree, but I think we'll probably be pretty consensus on most of this. So first off, quarterbacks, Mr. Unlimited goes to the Big Apple, Russ to the Giants. And this is to clarify, this is for their value pre-move to post-move. So like, obviously, if it's different from neighbors, cool.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, Russ specifically, I think it's a negligible difference. So, especially with them getting Jackson Dart as well. I mean, who knows how long he's even going to be there. So I would just call it neutral. Yeah.
Doesn't really change anything. Russ is not a guy you're like trying to roster as a dynasty quarterback anyways. So pretty much the same. Sam Darnold to the Seahawks.
I mean, my gut wants to say neutral. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people will be like, well, it's red. He was amazing for the Vikings last year. He's got plenty of weapons in Seattle now, including Cooper Kupp. So it's another offseason move we'll get to in a second. But I feel like it's pretty neutral. I think they're still going to ask him to absolutely sling it around. They're not just going to rely on the run game. Pete Carroll's now with the Raiders, so that offense looked absolutely different and is going to look very different without Geno. It's going to look very different with Sam Darnold and slinging it around. So I will call it neutral, where I feel like a lot of people would potentially call it a negative move.
Yeah, that's fair. That was my first gut instinct, and then you kind of talked me out of it. So I would say neutral just because I would have said negative just because I think maybe like our offensive line was slightly better in Minnesota, and like he struggles when he gets hit. So, and then maybe defense-wise, like he might be throwing from behind more, so I guess that would help. But winning-wise, that might be a little bit of a difference. But it's probably an orange for me. It's right on the border of both, so I can see the argument there. Justin Fields to the Jets. This one's kind of my favorite of the quarterback moves. Justin Fields to the Jets is super interesting to me. I think he proved himself last year, even before they gave the job over to Russ, and came in and looked really, really good in the beginning. And then now he gets like the clear job to go over to the Jets, which the exciting part is that he was former teammates with Garrett Wilson back at Ohio State back in the day. So that connection could be there and could be very, very interesting. They went and drafted a tight end, I think in the second or third round, day 2, to also give him some more weapons. And then on top of that, we obviously still have Breece Hall in the backfield. So Fields is going to have the chance to move around a lot. I think this helps his value a ton, going from like a fringe QB2 / backup to like you could like pick him up and have him be your number 2 or easy fill-in. And I won't be surprised if he has some spike weeks in there just because of his rushing upside.
Yeah, 100% agreed. I have nothing else to add to that. I think Fields is one of the biggest winners after the end of this draft.
Yes, definitely. And then the last couple, I'll kind of group them together because I feel about the same. But Daniel Jones to the Colts and Geno Smith to the Raiders. That change anything?
No, pretty neutral to me. I don't think you're not trying to rely on either of these two for a fantasy relevant quarterback for you this year. Potentially even in Superflex, I'm probably not touching him.
Yeah, I mean,
it could be a maybe,
Geno,
but yeah.
That's about it. Daniel Jones, who knows if he's even going to win the job with Anthony Richardson, and even if he does, it's kind of meh. But Daniel Jones, at least it's interesting for Brock Bowers. That's about where it leaves it for me.
Yeah,
it's just because it's like, okay, look what he did with no quarterback last year. Now we can do it at least with Geno, who's competent. So. All right, moving into running backs. Yeah, Najee to the Chargers. It looks like Christmas with your colors here.
It does. So, I mean, as soon as it happened, I was like, well, this is perfect. You move into a Harbaugh offense where they want a bell cow and everybody's super happy. So I hope you didn't go too early because then we get into the draft and now they draft Omarion Hampton in the first round, who is essentially him, but with more pass catching chops. Yeah, and so it immediately went to red for me. We're like, hey, Najee, by the way, here's your 1 year prove it deal. Actually, just kidding. We don't really care if you prove it at all. Please just leave after this season. So it went from a green to a red for me. And that's not saying he's going to be non-fantasy relevant now. It's just, I think his value. And once Omarion Hampton gets in here, look up a picture of him. The dude is an absolute unit, and that's coming from a UNC fan. The dude looks ridiculous. So everyone's like, oh, they're going to split work. I don't give it very long before Omarion Hampton says, hey, by the way, this is my backfield.
Yes, agreed. Najee went from being like a high RB2 volume driven RB2 to now like I think he'll be a flex and it'll be a does he score or not type of thing. And Omarion's going to take more of the goal line on top of that. So they literally just like copied and pasted who they drafted, which was very surprising to me. Like I thought you would have gone for like more like lightning versus thunder type of thing, but maybe they just really wanted Omarion and they, obviously when you sign Najee, you don't know if you're going to be in a position to get him. So yeah, this went very, very badly. Najee is still usable, but his value is down. So Javonte Williams to the Cowboys.
Yeah, I mean, this one is a green for me simply because he was so buried in Sean Payton's doghouse in Denver. Again, another UNC guy. So this one just pains me. I will get back to it here in a second. I cannot believe Denver didn't take Omarion Hampton at 20. I was so rattled. He's a perfect Sean Payton guy. I digress. Anyway.
When they didn't, I was like, oh no, he's going to fall out of the first. And then immediately the next pick, Chargers like, no, we'll do it.
Yeah. I think Javonte just needed a completely new scene. I think just that change of scenery is going to help him because it certainly couldn't hurt him. He was so out of favor in Denver. I think going to the Cowboys is not necessarily like, oh, hey, this is an awesome fit or anything like that. I think truly just the change of scenery is going to be great for him. And on top of that, they didn't really address the backfield whatsoever. Some people expected throughout the draft. The other is, I think they got a third or fourth round individual, maybe even later than that, and then Miles Sanders. And so I get everybody's like Javonte Williams, super inefficient, still an excellent pass catcher. So I think a change of scenery just makes it a green for him simply because he had to get out of Denver and try somewhere else.
You mean former my guy Miles Sanders? How dare you?
He's Jaden so awful.
Blue. I had to go look it up. Jaden Blue for fourth round.
I couldn't remember the name. I think fourth round maybe.
Know nothing about him from Texas though. So yeah, I'm very excited for Javonte. I continue to regret the Brandon Ayuk trade is looking pretty bad right now for you boys. So it's just things are going more and more right for your end.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I still like Ayuk, so.
I hope so. I don't know what's going on. Now that Debo's gone, if he can be healthy and not be dramatic, that'd be great. Javonte's great, but he's no Rico Dowdle. So we're going to talk about Rico Dowdle next to the Panthers, who left the Cowboys. If he looked great for the Cowboys, I can't understand that Javonte. If Javonte doesn't, he is just the most inefficient overhyped guy ever. So, or because he tore his ACL on his knee 2 years in a row to start the career, that maybe it just was lost. But anyways.
Yeah, I feel like I have read for Rico, but I feel relatively pessimistic about that, or like I don't feel great about that. I should say because I'm like Rico. I mean, Rico did fine in Dallas. There's no question about that. Like he's shown that he can be really good in spurts. I don't know if he can handle an entire workload, but coming in here and now sitting behind a re-signed Chuba Hubbard. I mean, Chuba seems to be like their guy. They don't care. They're just going to run him into the ground until he gets hurt or retires or whatever it is. And poor Jonathan Brooks, like we'll get into that. Poor guy, but he's going to absolutely be the two and in some of those spots. And Chuba Hubbard is a very good pass catching back. So I don't know that he's going to get I mean, he's absolutely not going to get as much work as he did with Dallas.
Yeah.
They just love Chuba Hubbard. So coming to Carolina, you're just going to sit behind him, it seems like, forever.
Yeah. Chuba's a much better upgrade than Zeke, who we had to fight with last year and just proved he was better than. And I feel like this signing is more for the Panthers being like, well, Brooks is probably lost for this entire next season, so we're just going to bring in Rico to do what Brooks would have done as the true complement for Chuba. So, and the other tough part too is like even Chuba it gets very game scripted out because the Panthers are always bad. So it's like you're hoping to get 30 to 35% of the carries, if lucky, in a split backfield for a bad team. So like, I think Rico can still be very, very efficient and will probably look good and maybe can parlay this into a plan elsewhere for like one more short contract, but it doesn't look good fantasy wise just because I think he's going to help the real team more than that. So, and then lastly, two gross ones. I didn't even want to put them in here, but just because they flip flopped as free agents, but Madison going from the Raiders to Miami and then Mostert going from Miami to the Raiders.
That's too funny. I put both Reds in here. Didn't even realize that. I forgot Mattinson was on the Raiders. But no, I hate them both, and I will have neither of them.
Yeah.
Mattinson because he's Mattinson, and I want nothing to do with him. But never fun to be behind Achane. And Mostert to the Raiders. Hello, Ashton, Jeanty. You have no chance. Go sit over there.
Yeah, for me, I guess they're technically neutral because I hated them before, but they're just the same.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I just had to put red because I don't like them.
They are neutral changes staying in red category. True. The only thing that I will say quickly on this, just because I'm a shameless Achane guy, is that putting Madison in as the backup instead of Mostert makes me more excited for Achane because Mostert can do what Achane can do if he's healthy. Madison cannot. He is slow and he is inefficient and will just run forward. So like, you're not going to be vultured by him scoring touchdowns. You're not going to see him like get a hot hand and be given 10 to 12 carries. So it's just like, this is so clearly a backup depth piece that I'm like, great. Maybe Achane's going to get all of the work. And I know they have Jalen Wright in there, so maybe they're hoping for him to become the 2 and like show more this year. But this made me like get Mostert out of there for those random like 2 games a year that he has a 60-yard touchdown and it ruins my Achane day. So that's exciting.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed there.
Is not doing anything Jeanty can do, so Jeanty is getting all the work there. So
correct.
All right, moving into receiving options, we're going to round that out. Not a whole lot of like positive needle movers here, but some interesting ones. So I'll start off with the biggest one, I guess, arguably, is Diggs to the Patriots.
Yeah, I mean, hard to know. I mean, I'm going to call it neutral, but with the injury last year, you can at least say so much. I mean, Drake may look good. I mean, obviously, I'm not saying he's CJ Stroud, but I'm also not saying he's worse than CJ Stroud. So at the end of the day, they don't have anywhere near what any human would call an alpha there, and they're not just going to sit and turn around and hand the ball off. I mean, obviously, having Ramondre and now TreVeyon Henderson is nice, so maybe they lean on a little bit more. But Drake May is serviceable. He's going to get Diggs the ball. Diggs is going to get his, but I would think to me, it feels like a neutral change from where he would be at in the pecking order from the Texans.
Yeah, I think he's gonna do really well there, but I don't know that the Patriots like volume. Same thing as the Panthers. Right. I don't know that it's gonna be enough to sustain like an alpha because he was what, low wide receiver 1 before he got hurt with the Texans. Like he was doing well even with Nico, and I don't think that's gonna happen now with the like maybe in PBR. Maybe he'll get like a crap ton of targets because it's gonna be May's safety blanket, and I think it's gonna help May really really well long term because it gets him like a clear number 1 guy to rely on versus just a bunch of scrap parts. But
true.
I think he'll probably be like a wide receiver 2 depending on how he comes back from the injury. So I guess neutral-ish 2, but I'm optimistic for how it's going to help May is about it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I'll probably be lower on Diggs. I don't know that I'll have too much of him. I could absolutely see him finishing as like wide receiver 36. So I'm like, I don't know that I'll have him anywhere near the wide receiver 2 territory.
I'm so curious what he's going in best ball right now, so I'm going to toss out the next one and look this up.
Yeah, go for it.
Big one, Cooper Kupp to the Seahawks, which my JSN ownership was a roller coaster this offseason, so I'll just let you go from there.
Just, again, I think with the transition, it's going to be neutral for him, which sounds kind of crazy with how much him and Matt Stafford were in love with each other, but then you transition to somebody like Sam Darnold. So I think what's crazy is that I think he's going to still get some of that volume, and maybe that veteran connection kind of sits there, or they use JSN in a different way and is more of an X now that DK is gone. For those that don't know, he's now with the Steelers. Gross. So maybe they use JSN in more of an X, and then put Kupp in the slot, and so then we get a little bit more of those short-term or short yardage passes. So I think it's more neutral than a negative.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think everybody has a sour taste in their mouth because of how Kupp ended the season and ended my guillotine playoff hopes because I kept trusting him. But I think he's better than that. I think it just wasn't working, or maybe he was hampered by an injury that they didn't disclose.
Yeah, he was.
I think he's not gone. Like, I think he probably doesn't have what he used to have, but I think he's got a couple of years left. So I think it'll be solid for him. But everybody else who was like, oh my God, this ruins JSN stats. Like, you're treating him like the Cooper Kupp that was the wide receiver 1, not like DK is an athletic freak. And everybody seems to think, oh, well, Kupp is in the slot role and JSN was so good in the slot role, so they're just going to cancel each other out and this isn't going to work. Like, JSN was in the slot role because we had DK as an alpha on the outside. He can do the outside stuff.
Correct.
He just didn't need
Exactly.
to do that. So it's like, I think people are forgetting that. So I think I'm still very much in on JSN. And I think that's kind of a situation where, like, it's probably is leveled out now for the non-dynasty people, but I think you could get JSN at a value more because people were scared away by the Kupp news at the time. Side note, going back to this, take a guess what you think Diggs' best ball is currently, what his ranking would be. I know you said like you could see him finishing as like wide receiver 36, but like, is that what you think he's ranked? Do you think he's higher? Do you think he's lower?
I'm just trying to like smash through names in my head, but I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I bet you he's going as like in best ball. I'm trying to think because pretty much all the rookies just with that hype in best ball would be going above him. So like, I don't know if it has a wide receiver number on there. Wide receiver like 42?
Yeah, wide receiver 46. Below guys
pretty close.
Like Josh Downs, Jalen McMillan, Juwan Jennings. Tet is at 41, just above him. Jacoby Myers is above him. Darnell Mooney is above him.
That's pretty gross.
Yeah.
That one's pretty gross.
If he was being drafted as wide receiver 46 in redraft leagues come August, September, I'd be super in on that. Basically, if I can get him below anything below wide receiver 24, because I think he's probably going to be like, if every wide receiver on a team is 1 through 32, I think he's at least in that category. Like, I think he's at least going to have the volume to do that. So I'm in on him for like at least a low to high flex kind of thing with volume upside. So 46 is crazy to me. But anyway, just had to go back to that. So
yeah, I mean, that was pretty close.
We'll run through a couple more here quickly. DK, we talked about, left the Seahawks. He is to the Steelers now. That hurts value big time, correct? Especially until we know the quarterback.
Yeah, exactly. And again, the whole thought process with it during draft day was, okay, they got DK, so does this make Pickens expendable? Both of them are big body guys, jump ball guys.
Same. Yeah.
Guess what? They have nobody to throw them the ball. Like, I don't care. Like, I don't.
Down the field as
you
much
can
as
run down the field, but guess what? Turn around and run back to the line of scrimmage because it was either 80 yards short or 30 yards over your head. So I have no idea how they're going to split this work and essentially have 2 down the field jump ball alphas, red zone targets, and things like that. So I don't know what DK is going to be at, but if he's anywhere near a top 18 wide receiver, I will be out.
Yeah, I can't even imagine that. I think I see him as like a low 2 type of thing.
Yes.
Like, I think that's going to be very, very tough. He's going to have boom weeks, but he's not going to have any kind of consistency.
He's going to be frustrating.
Yes, yeah. Devontae Adams traded to the Rams from the Raiders and then the Jets.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I think Devontae just, when he comes in, where it seems like he just commands targets. And so I'm not saying like, oh, hey, now Puka's going to be undervalued or anything like that, or overvalued or anything like that. I think he's just going to fall right into it. But Devontae's going to get his. There's no question about that. So it feels neutral to me rather than a downgrade, because I think Stafford's going to, if nothing else, look at him and be like, hey, wily old vet, we'll get on the same page pretty quickly here. Yeah. And he's going to get enough to stay plenty relevant.
Yeah, he's a more athletic Kupp who can go downfield instead of just running. So, I mean, that's not going to hurt you. I think touchdown probably as a positive, but then like yardage and volume is going to be more of a negative or like neutral, because it's not going to be Rodgers hyper targeting. I just looked him up and he was wide receiver 14 or 11, depending on standard versus PPR. Like, he was overly targeted, which is crazy. So probably not that number with Puka there, but I don't think it's bad by any means. This one's gross. I don't even know why I put that in there now, but Hopkins to the Ravens, he wasn't relevant. He's not going to be relevant there, especially where the receivers go to die fantasy wise. And then Debo traded to the Commanders from the 49ers. Does this hurt? Does it stay the same?
This was a tough one for me. I said it hurt him. I mean, thinking through it, I could certainly be convinced on a neutral, but it's just, I think Jaden seemed to hyper target Terry McLaurin this last year, but he also didn't really have a second option, right? Like, I mean, his number one and 2 target shares were McLaurin and Zach Ertz. So, I mean, if you're going to put if you're going to Swiss Army that you want to call him, and is that going to actually hurt somebody like Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler more? Or are you going to put him in the backfield? But if he's going to be just an absolute wide receiver 2, I think it's got to be a downgrade because he's not going to get the manufactured touches that he did in San Francisco because they just have individuals that already do that and do that well in the capacities that he did it. He just got that volume because there were so many injuries in San Francisco, and coming to Washington now, I just think he's going to get less of those manufactured touches.
Yeah, that's fair. I think I'm more on the neutral side just because I think it's going to be still where they're utilizing him that on the end arounds and the sweeps and stuff. So I know they got Brian Robinson, but they don't give him like crazy high volume. So I think that Debo will cut into some of that a little bit. And like you said, there's just nobody else after Terry. So
yeah,
Jaden taking another step forward, them wanting to run things through him. It kind of feels like another move like the Diggs thing where they're just getting their young guy another weapon to look good. But yeah, I think it's more neutral for me. I think Debo was probably, I don't know what he was valued at. I know he ended the year really, really bad, but like low 2 to flex-ish range, like 24 to 30, maybe. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I think he's at least probably still there, just with an offense that has slightly less mouths to feed. And this was last year with CMC being out. So I think it's better that he got out of there between having CMC and Kittle and IU coming back and Jawan Jennings and Pearsall. Like, I think it's just, that'll help. So
true. Fair.
All right, now we're into the last big section here, the NFL draft reactions for rookie draft, fantasy implication stuff. So rather than going one by one, I'm just going to kind of do the shotgun approach per category. I'll just mention the few big names, or if there's like the running backs and receivers where there's a lot, I'll do a few at a time. And then I'll let you talk more because for those of you that don't know, Tyler follows college players a lot more than I do. I just, once they become fantasy relevant is when I'm like, all right, deep dive in. So I'll mention the few and a couple of quick thoughts, and then you can add to it and covered the majority of it from there. So quarterbacks, Cam Ward, 101 to the Titans. He's a big arm thrower, mobile in the pocket kind of guy. Obviously, they have Ridley there. They signed Tyler Lockett. I don't know that I'm looking to have him be my quarterback in fantasy, at least in redrafts, but he's obviously the first quarterback taken in dynasties. So depending on Superflex or not, one quarterback leagues, he's probably a late first for me. Second one drafted, Jackson Dart to the Giants. Much more mobile, extends the plays well. I don't think everybody was expecting him to be the quarterback 2 necessarily as a lock, or definitely be for sure in the first round, but good commitment there as far as the draft capital. But also feels odd with them bringing in Russ and J-Mo this year. So I'm assuming the move is to start a veteran and then have him worked along slowly. But I think he's got some upside just with the athletic ability long-term in dynasty. So neither of those guys are ones that I'm looking at for redraft by any means. And then Tyler Show to the number 40 overall to the Saints. Did not see that coming. He's the one that legitimately could start the soonest because Derek Carr's big question injury. So, I mean, could be a late round flyer just because maybe he turns into something and he's going to get the work right off the bat. So that's my quick thoughts. Any big things on the quarterbacks?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're exactly right. I think in redraft, these guys aren't going to be anybody that I'm targeting relevancy wise. Dynasty and Superflex more so than one QB leagues. I think any rookie QB that gets drafted in the first round should be somewhere around like tail end of the first round, early second round, just because you never know what they're going to turn into. And especially somebody like Jackson Dart, because we've mentioned he has the athleticism. So I think that's a huge thing. And if you go there and look at the tape, he's a big dude. Like everybody is going to, this entire summer, you're going to hear Jackson Dart looks a lot like Josh Allen. And so he makes very silly throws sometimes, but my Lord, he's a big human being, and my Lord, can he run. So those are the comparisons you're going to hear pretty much the entire summer is, hey, we're going to get a guy who's going to throw 35 touchdowns, but he's also going to throw 25 interceptions. He's going to make some very silly throws, but he's going to be able to keep a lot of plays alive with his mobility and his athleticism. So you're going to see a lot of the Josh Allen comps there, which obviously is huge praise, but go and look at Josh Allen's rookie year. He was pretty awful. So don't give up on somebody like Jackson Dart, especially in a dynasty. He's absolutely somebody to grab with like your 201, 202, or even a late first if you want, and you're QB needy because that mobility is certainly going to help him.
That's what I was just going to ask. Say you somewhat needed a quarterback, or I mean, maybe not desperately, but maybe you're like, yeah, I kind of have a borderline guy. I could use a shot as another one. Where do you take Ward or Jackson Dart if you believe in him over Ward? Like, where do you take the first quarterback in the one QB leagues?
Yeah, in those one QB leagues, I'm usually somewhere in the early second, just because By the time you get to the tail end of their first round, you've essentially exhausted most of the fantasy relevant individuals at the skill positions, at wide receiver, tight end, and running back and whatnot as well. And when you're getting into day 2 picks, those hit rates absolutely plummet when it comes to running backs and wide receivers, and especially tight ends and whatnot. So if you're pretty set at those, great, take your flyers. But if you're somewhat QB needy, I'm always targeting those mobile rookie quarterbacks and stashing them on my taxi squad for a couple years, just in hopes that they develop. So I have no issue somewhere in the second round taking that QB.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think plus it's nice if you're a rebuilder, you probably could use help anywhere, but
Sure.
you've already at least gotten your first round pick somewhere else. So it's not like you're leading with a quarterback. So I'm good with that. I think I could see somebody in fantasy being like, I'm going to lean Dart more just because I can see him long term becoming something else, and that rushing is king. So, all right, going into the actual guys that matter, running backs wise, I'll break this. See, this is so tough because I obviously there's the Jeanty tier, and then there's like, I guess
everybody
the
else
tier, and everybody else is like 3 through 6. I said like this
do
just
that.
all got
I think
so
that's great.
closer. So Ashton Jeanty to the Raiders, obviously lead back, but the fact that he got top 6, was it 6 overall?
6
overall? Yeah. Capital is even more of a positive safety, and he walks into a spot where there's no competition whatsoever, and they really have no receivers outside of Jacoby helping and then Brock Bowers, obviously. So I mean, like he's going to get a lot of the dump off and like screen game work too. Now they also bring in Pete Carroll as head coach, who loves to run the ball. And Chip Kelly as offensive coordinator is very interesting because he was a lot more of like the speed up, go fast, but he's now going to kind of transition to the Pete Carroll, like run and control the game. And then they bring in a quarterback, Geno Smith, who not exciting fantasy wise, but is a lot better of a step up than the Raiders had. So like everything perfect storm just made this such a nice landing spot for Jeanty. So he's easily an instant mid running back 1. I won't be surprised if he ends up as like in August mode, a late first round pick, kind of like the Bijan, where it's like a who's going to take him between 5 to 12 type of thing. So very, very spicy there. But yeah, that's my first thought.
I agree with you. I saw an ESPN mock earlier today, maybe potentially yesterday. My man Jeanty, RB2, he went 4th overall. I was like, oh my goodness.
After Saquon or Bijan?
That's Saquon, and then Jeanty, and then Bijan, and I was like, that's a lot of Kool-Aid.
Bijan and Gibbs is disrespectful to me still. I can see if you want to argue 4 to 6, but
literally 4th overall. I thought it was absolutely bonkers. Like it was like Jamar Chase, Saquon, somebody, and then Jeanty, and I was like, oh my goodness. I don't know that I'll be that high, but I'm 100% with you. I can absolutely see the tail end of the first round. There's no question about it.
I think if I were picking those first 3, Saquon, Gibbs, and Bijan in whatever order, are locks to me above him just because of the unproven question mark part. Yeah. And they've got better offenses around them too.
Yeah, scoring potential, touchdowns.
4 I think is where you can make the argument of him versus X or him versus Y. So like I think that's where it'll end up being, is like who wants to take the swing, and like maybe you take him 5th, 6th, 7th kind of thing. But the volume's going to be there. And if we believe in the college tape, it was very, very impressive. So
yeah,
I'll go into my.
It's crazy. When you have more yards after contact.
Yeah, he's the Derrick Henry of college.
Yeah, more yards after contact by 900 than the next guy had yards. Like that's bonkers. That should not be a thing. Granted, I mean everybody's gonna say great. He played for Boise State, didn't play anybody. Believe me, go watch the Power 5 games that he played against. He did just fine.
Yeah, still looked good even in the college playoffs too. So going into tier 2, Marion Hampton to the Chargers. I'm just going to leave it at this is his own tier because I think he's the RB2 pretty clearly, and he actually went to a good spot. Like it went in this order, and then everything after that kind of got blown up. So we talked about Najee earlier in the 1-year deal. The fact that it's a 1 year instead of a 2 year means that they're very not committed to him whatsoever. So kind of like Tyler said, I expect it to be like a start of the year where it's like a 60-40 Najee, and then I think it's going to flip very, very quickly because he can do everything Najee can and yet better and more efficiently, because Najee's Mr. Volume, no efficiency. So I am expecting low RB2 numbers to start, and then as the season goes, we could kind of see that creep up a little bit, like more mid running back 2, because I really like that fit in the offense, and Harbaugh.
Agreed. I mean, the Chargers outperformed expectation last year. Nobody thought Ladd was going to be as good as he was, honestly. And so Amarion's only going to help that. And truly, I mean, the biggest winner of the draft might be Justin Herbert. So as like getting Ladd, getting Omarion, getting Trey Harris, who we'll talk about in just a little bit. But yeah, Omarion's perfect fit for this offense and a team that really wants to run the ball. So he'll absolutely be in the RB2 tier for me.
And then the tier 3 group of running backs, the Jackson Pollock painting, where we just threw everything together and you can look at it however you want to look at it to see who makes sense. So I'm listing these guys in the order they were drafted, not necessarily like rankings or anything. So we'll just name the 4 of them and then kind of let Tyler fill it in from there. So Quinshon Judkins, 36 overall to the Browns, just out of the first round. And then 2 picks after him, TreVeyon Henderson, 38 to the Patriots. RJ Harvey, a little bit of a surprise there at number 60 overall, late second to the Broncos, the pick that everybody thought was going to end up taking one of the 4 running backs above him. And then Kaleb Johnson to the Steelers, who barely even has to change his jersey colors. He just switched over from Iowa. So just like that. How are you leaning? I don't know if you want to even talk about like ranking them because we're going to get into them later, but love all fits. Any you're concerned about? Any that are, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the fits, they all feel relatively solid. Honestly, they landed in spots that all have paths to relevancy relatively quickly, especially Judkins. Like, obviously, there's really nobody on the Browns. There's talk that Nick Chubb is going to be gone here within the next couple weeks. There's talks of him being traded to the Bears. So I thought that was interesting. I don't know if you've heard that. No. Based on your reaction, I will tell you no. So I've heard that, but that would obviously just leave Judkins essentially to himself between him and I guess Jerome Ford. So Jerome Ford's not going anywhere. He's got that exact offense. So Judkins would take over early down work and Jerome Ford and whatnot. They would split that. TreVeyon Henderson, him and Ramondre are going to be 1-2 punch. I don't think they're not going to just phase Ramondre out. So you're going to split carries there. RJ Harvey is really interesting. Really interesting. There's a backfield that we really don't have any idea what it's going to look like. Sean Payton tends to like to mix and match, but if he finds somebody, he has no issue with going to a bell cow. So I think if RJ Harvey impresses and does those little things like pass protection and things like that, that's very old school Sean Payton. I could see him being all of a sudden like, hey, this guy's incredibly fantasy relevant, and you're going to get him at a good price. So he's worth that flyer late, but he's a rookie, so I'm sure he'll get pushed up. And then same with Kaleb Johnson, like with Najee gone and Jaylen Warren still there, Caleb's a punch in the mouth, and Jaylen Warren is obviously a receiver type. So I think Caleb's just going to come in and take on the Najee role, and Jaylen Warren's going to stay as is. So people are like, oh, this really hurts Jaylen. I'm like, I don't know. I think he just goes back to the same 1-2 punch that he was at before, whereas obviously Najee was inefficient. But I don't think it changes Jaylen Warren's value much because Kaleb Johnson doesn't have like super pass catching chops that all of a sudden he's going to start taking away that type of volume.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is maybe it changes it hurts me a little bit for him as dynasty owners long term. Like this year, he's probably pretty much the same, but long term, it makes me now go, ooh, like you barely brought him back as it was. Like you were debating between him and Najee, and you brought him back as the restricted free agent, blah, blah. And now you go and draft a guy relatively early on day 2. It makes me think that like if this guy hits, you probably just can let him walk the next year. So
cool.
All 4 of them, though, are actually very interesting for me, even in redrafts. Like, I definitely take flyers on whatever like, mid to late rounds they're going to go. I'm sure Judkins and Henderson will probably go in like 6, 7, 8 because running backs are running backs. But yeah, all 4 of them. I don't know how to rank any of them in Dynasty for sure yet. I keep flipping on Judkins and Henderson because everything we all heard before the draft was Henderson was the clear number 3, and then Judkins went to an even better spot to me and without as much competition because Chubb's actually unsigned. He's just free agency walking around right now. So they assume they'll bring him back, but like people don't know. So, and then TreVeyon, like the team seemed to hate Ramondre last year, so he might be not even a thing after midway of this year, or he could continue to be a thorn in the sides. I don't know. RJ Harvey seems like the one that's just like the most inflated at this point because it's the Sean Payton factor. So it's this could be crazy good. We're like, he's the guy that none of us saw coming and the other 5 were all talked about, but I don't know how to feel. I'd be very happy taking a shot on any of them. I want to get somebody. If I'm in like a mid-round pick for a dynasty league, I don't know how you pick, but you just got to get one of them. And redraft, I'm taking a flyer on 1 to 2 possibly, especially if I punt running back. All right, wide receiver wise, same kind of thing. It's a clear like 1 to 2 at the top, and then pick your poison beyond that. So we'll go a little bit quicker. But Travis Hunter to the Jags, obviously. The big question is just, is he going to play receiver primarily, or is it going to be corner? How is it going to also affect Brian Thomas Jr.? Because obviously he lit it up last year and was an early pick receiver as well. So it's not like Travis Hunter is walking in to be the alpha guaranteed right off the bat. And you could also be lighting the pick completely on fire if the Jaguars are like, our defense sucks. Let's put him there. There's him, and then I'll also toss out Tet so you can kind of talk about them both. But Tet to your Carolina Panthers, big body dude. He's 6'4", 229 pounds, and he's a lot more like jump ball, vertical, deep pass kind of guy. Probably becomes the one for Bryce Young pretty quickly since Thielen kind of fits the very opposite type of role as him. I feel like he's probably more of a low wide receiver too, but it's going to really depend on Bryce taking another step like he looked to close out the season. So those are the two. I see some people taking Tet over Travis just because of the uncertainty, but that's kind of the consensus tier.
Yeah, agreed. For redraft, by the time you get to having to draft, you're going to know more about what Travis Hunter is going to look like in that. In Dynasty, I tend to play it more safe. So for me, I'm taking Tet over Travis Hunter simply because even if they get 2 years down into it and they say, oh, hey, by the way, we're going to go 70-30 split. Now you're going to play defense more. That all of a sudden makes that, just lights that pick on fire. I get the argument if you want to make it. The point of rookie drafts is to swing for upside. The point of rookie drafts is to swing for upside in later rounds, in second and third and fourth rounds. You just take the person with the highest upside because most of them flame out anyway. You've got to take Travis Hunter with a 102 to 105, essentially. I'm not burning that draft pick on somebody who, when Tet's going to come in here and he's going to be the instant one for. I live in Carolina, but he will be the instant one. I promise you. Xavier Legette and Jalen Coker and Adam Thielen aren't going to do much to stop him. He's going to come in here. They're both Cali boys. They already have that connection. They've already talked about it. So he's going to come in and dominate and be target share. He's the big Mike Evans comp everybody sees. He's going to be the big target guy. So volume will be there. The Panthers are still awful. They're still going to constantly be playing from behind, and he's got great hands, great radius. So I can absolutely see him plenty fine being a usable piece this year. So I think you're totally fine with either of them in Dynasty, but for me, I'm going to lean Ted over Travis Hunter.
Yeah, on that note too, speaking in our own draft, which we'll get into in a little bit, but Nick, when he was on the clock at 103, I was like, so what are you thinking? Because like the first two both went running back, and I didn't know if two would go as wide receiver. And he was like initially leading Travis Hunter, and he was like, I'm just going to use all 8 hours of the clock because it's probably not going to come out, but on the chance that like some news report drops that's like this or that, whatever, he's going to be more corner. He's like, this is the actual guy that you want to take the long clock on. And then he ended up going Judkins instead at 103 because he was like, I'm just scared that Hunter's not going to be fully used of what he is. So I think there's going to be a lot of people in the offseason and in slow drafts and rookie drafts that are just like, I don't know what to do. Like technically Sleeper had him at like 108 or 109 because it was like, what point projection do we give this guy? So to your point about the safety pick, I think if I'm rebuilding, I definitely lean more Tet, and maybe that's not consensus. Maybe people will have this flip-flopped in their heads, but the way I think is like rebuilding, I need to get some picks on paper and lock in some starters. Whereas if I'm like, maybe Travis Hunter slips in your draft to like the 8 spot or something like that, or you're a contender who for some reason has a top 5 pick, that's where I'd be more likely to go Hunter. Cause I'm like, you know what? I like my team without him anyways. So even if I burn that pick and rip it to shreds, whatever, but if I hit and I get to do another stud on top of it, that's like the home run swing. So it's definitely, it makes sense to not risk for that when like, you're not going to win if Hunter becomes elite anyways, but you're definitely screwed for years and years if he doesn't. So that's where I stand. So, All right. Moving into some of the other receivers. So rest of the first round, we got Emeka Egbuka to a number 19 overall to the Bucks, and then Matthew Golden 23 to the Packers, and then I'll round it out with the 3 second rounders from there. So any thoughts on those two? I knew a little bit about Golden being the speedster, but I didn't really know much about either of them in college.
For me, if I'm thinking of it in dynasty terms, it's Egbuka, and it isn't close, honestly. So Egbuka was, out of the Ohio State factory that is receivers. And he was considered to be very close to JSN level. And everybody was very hesitant about JSN, a couple years ago, based on the type of wide receiver room. Look how that looks now. Look how fast the dynasty landscape changes. So if I get there and somebody is worried about Egbuka and he falls to the 110 or something like that for whatever reason, enjoy it. Slap him on your taxi squad for a year and reap the benefits, because dude is ridiculous. I promise you that. Him going to 19 was absolutely warranted. Golden is kind of the Xavier Worthy comp, right? He's the speed guy. He's not as nuanced with his route running and everything like that. Egbuka is a nasty route runner. He is incredible. He's got great hands. He's obviously more of a true slot guy. There's no question about that. So maybe he hurts Godwin. Obviously, they re-signed Godwin, but what confidence does that have in somebody who is potentially injured? So you might have to sit on Egbuka for a year, but I think it's honestly very possible he comes out of this in the best spot in a year.
Yeah, I can definitely see that, especially as things start to shake out with the rest of them. It's just so sad for McMillan. So that's all I'll say about that.
That is brutal, coming from the McMillan owner.
And then Matthew Golden just kind of comes into another similar situation as Egbuka, which is just crowded receiver room. So you hope he shakes things out, and it seems like the team likes him if they're taking him in the first to give him that chance. But a lot of people to kind of figure out before that happens. So. Lastly, really quick, I won't spend a ton of time on them, but the day 2 guys, Jaden Higgins, 34 to the Texans, knew nothing about him. I expected Burden to go above him, but he was the next one. And then Luther Burden, the third, 39 overall to the Bears. And lastly, Trey Harris, who you were pumped about that pick, to the Chargers for Herbert. So anything on any of those 3 that stands out?
I'm with you. Very interesting that Jaden Higgins went before Burden. Jaden's a bigger dude. There's no question about that, where Luther Burden's pretty small. But then at the same time, like, Burden went to the Bears where they have Rome Odunze. So are they going to move him outside, or does that hurt him? I don't really know. Luther Burden's pretty nasty as well. There's no question about that. I feel like Jaden Higgins was more a pick of necessity for the Texans because, in my opinion, for those that don't remember, Tank Dell got hurt in December at the last season, and it was gruesomely brutal. Please do not go look it up. I will not be surprised if we don't see Tank Dell at all this season. It was really bad. Rehab reports that have come out are like, we're not commenting on progress. He's making progress, but we're not putting a timetable on it whatsoever.
Yeah.
Because they drafted Jaden Higgins in the second. They turned around and drafted his teammate, Jalen Noel, in the third. Both from Iowa State. They're best friends. Jaden Higgins kind of a cocky guy. He seems to be very nonchalant, doesn't really put in the work, and Jalen Noel is a smaller guy and much more so seems like a workhorse guy. So I feel like they just brought them both in to compete with each other and see what happens, and maybe that hurts them at the end of the day. I would much rather have Luther Burden on my team than either Jaden Higgins or Jalen Noel, in my opinion, and there's no question about that. Burden, I really am surprised that somebody didn't even pick him in the back end of the first or trade into that. So I mean 39 is relatively close to first round pick, but that surprised me, him falling there, because he's very on par with like an Egbuka when it comes to route running and whatnot. It just seems like he maybe just doesn't have as much of that explosiveness, but he's a very good route runner. So I like Luther Burden absolutely over Jaden Higgins. I will not be surprised if he is a better value than Matthew Golden as well. I will take Burden over Golden.
Yeah, Burden's the one that makes me the most sad, I think, because every other receiver, for the most part, went into a spot that was either really high draft capital or like a good fit. And Burden, it just was like, I was pumped for him. He actually was one that I had circled and tagged as like having the late first, the 112, where I'm like, ooh, I would love to snag him. And then he went to the Bears, and I'm just like,
it's a hard one.
DJ Moore, Odunze, literally in the first last year, they just drafted Loveland at 10, and they still have Komet, and Swift is still a receiving back, and Kaleb needs to take a step forward before we believe in him anyways to sustain like 2 guys, let alone 3, 4, 5. So I just don't love it. Like long term, it could work out and Ben Johnson could scheme him, but like, you still have Odunze, who's literally a first round receiver from last year that's going to be in the way, even if the other guys start to get figured out. So like, I believe in the talent of him more than probably anybody up until Egbuka, but I just don't like the spot, and it scares me away. So I don't know what to do with him. I don't know if I'll still want to target him with the 112 or what, but I'm stuck. So that makes me sad. No analysis, just don't know what to do with it.
Yeah, that's fair. And then Trey Harris, just because I want to touch on him, I mentioned him going to the Chargers is just an absolute gift. He's like Quentin Johnston, but good at football, apparently. But he also played for Ole Miss, so that competition level is what a lot of people are scared of. And on top of that, he certainly dealt with some injuries. If you go look at, if you want to look at predictive metrics or however, one of the best predictive metrics coming into the NFL is the transition is yards per route run, and then first downs per route run. And if you find a graph, you're going to have to like go like this and just keep scrolling up to the top right until there's a singular dot so far away from everybody that you have no idea why you're that far up into the right quadrant. And that would be Trey Harris. He is ridiculous. He was a deep ball guy who was an absolute volume monster in his first downs. And I mean, he's like 6'4" jump ball guy. He's like Ted McMillan body if he needs to stay healthy. So him going to somewhere like the Chargers is an amazing amazing fit for him. He's such a great weapon compared to the slottish guy that is Ladd. So it's an amazing spot for him. The draft capital obviously isn't what you were hoping, but if you go back a year, Trey Harris was like, this guy's going to be the number one receiver coming out of this next year's draft. And then he dealt with a whole bunch of injuries. So to take a flyer on there, if you're going to get him somewhere in probably mid-second round in a rookie draft, I'm smashing that all day.
Would you take him over Jaden Higgins?
I would, absolutely.
Okay, that's kind of where I'm leaning. I think it's like Golden and Trey Harris are kind of on the tier for me, but I think I would go like Burden, Golden / Harris, and then Higgins in that group. So
yeah, I agree. Draft capital has to tell you that Golden has got to be up there. So that's the number one predictor. First yards per route run is 2, and first downs per route run is 3. So obviously, if you're going to use high draft capital on somebody, it means you believe in them. It means you're going to get the opportunities. So, I mean, usually that's the way to go. But Trey Harris Hill, injuries, big body guy, didn't play high competition level, but man, the dude is ridiculously athletic.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. All right, and then lastly, quick, the couple of tight ends. The one we mentioned a little bit earlier with the Bears, but Colson Loveland overall went at 10. 6'6", 248, and despite his size, is a great route runner. But then all the competition I just talked about a second ago with Burden is still there for him too, especially the fact that they have Komet, who kind of broke out last year. So not great redraft. I don't think I would even remotely have him drafted, but long-term potential in Dynasty could be interesting. And then Tyler Warren to the Colts just a few picks later. Arguably should have been the tight end 1. I think pretty commonly most people had that, but goes to a much better fit in a team with a massive need. It's really just going to be if the quarterback can get him the ball. But in college, as far as like stats goes, blew away and set the records with Penn State, 104 catches, 1233 yards. So very, very interesting, athletic, high upside guy when he gets the ball in his hands. So I would definitely be putting Warren well above Loveland in the drafts for now, but in the long term, the two could even out. Just kind of depends on the fit.
Yeah, no question. I absolutely lean Warren over Loveland as well, simply because of like that pecking order. Granted, again, for the Colts, still need to figure out how to get him the ball. He could be the number one target there if you don't trust Pittman, if you don't trust Downs and whatnot as well.
Yeah.
Tyler Warren's an amazing security blanket. He played everywhere at Penn State. It wasn't like, hey, he was an inland tight end. If you look at him, he's motioning in from the X into the slot and running drag routes and whatnot. So he's incredibly athletic, hits the seams incredibly well. He is obviously a volume monster, 1,233 yards, 104 catches. When you're doing anything at and above and beyond Brock Bowers, and again, in still the Big Ten with Penn State, you're doing something right. So, I mean, he's played in a great conference, played against great competition, similarly to Brock with the SEC in Georgia. So he did everything well at the highest level of competition. So Tyler Warren's an absolute stud.
Yeah, they're both going to be very interesting. Tyler Warren, I would at least give a shot on this year. It's just if you believe in Anthony Richardson. So Daniel Jones would help his value a lot, which sounds weird to say that sentence.
Yeah, don't say that.
Receiver.
That's not a thing.
But when you're comparing it to Mr. Sub 50% completion,
it's like, that is awful.
You only have to get it 5 yards downfield to Tyler Warren, and it'll work. So, all right, that's our deep dive of all the rookies, specifically, at least relevant ones in the first 3 rounds. So, really quick, I took a look at our current home league, Dynasty League, slow draft for rookie draft picks that is going on right now. It's our 1 quarterback, half PPR league. We are through 5 picks. We started yesterday, and it's up to 8 hours on the clock. So if you're using that, we're paused overnight. So it's a miracle we've even made it almost through the halfway through the first round at this point. But Jeanty went to yours, Yuli over there to the side, 101. And then a surprise move, Tyler traded the 102. I don't know if you had discussions in the offseason or if this just came together on the clock, but had all offseason to decide these 2 picks, and instead it's just coming out of the wire. So Tyler traded the 2 to Glick, and I was assuming that was going to be a move for a receiver, but he went up and took Amari Hampton. So get your running back guy, the clear number 2 pick there, so I don't hate that. A little bit of a surprise so far. And again, this is just to give you guys kind of like what a real draft looks like versus rankings and whatever, just what's happening in an actual league. So a little bit of a surprise. Nick went Quinshon Judkins at 3, which I think most people probably have him anywhere between 3 to 6. But I mean, it's him or TreVeyon Henderson, and then either of them versus the 2 receivers. And Nick just needed running back more, so that kind of made the decision easy for him. So went that. And then number 4, Josh goes Tet over Hunter. So, or TreVeyon still falling at that point. Just kind of went for the safety upside for another guy who kind of needs running back more, but maybe he just wanted the first receiver pick off the board. And then Joe finally stops the slide saying, I'm taking the high upswing shot at Travis Hunter. So I like all those picks so far. None of them are really bad for team need. It's just the Judkins and then maybe Tet versus Travis that you have there. So we got Connor next. We got technically Ben with 2 back-to-back picks, and then Josh picks again at 9 after picking at 4. So
9, yep.
do you have any thoughts on how this is going to go? I mean, do we see TreVeyon come off the board next, no matter whether Connor needs him or not? Or do we see some reaches? I know they've got Tyler Warren at, I think, 8 technically. I don't know if I have him that high personally, but we've got him, a couple more running backs. We got all the receivers still that we talked about down below. Quarterback's not even in the first round projection. What are we thinking is going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, I think Connor goes Henderson. It seems like he's kind of the last tier break. I'm not saying Kaleb Johnson isn't up there, but I mean, when you're looking at first round versus second round and whatnot, you're looking at a high second round with TreVeyon Henderson, and in a backfield where, I mean, he can take over. I mean, obviously Ramondre is kind of on the rocks, and it's a need for Connor. So my guess is he goes Henderson. I will not be surprised if he goes like Egbuka for sure, but that's what I would say is going to happen. It's going to be Henderson to Connor, and then I think Ben, he's got back-to-back because he traded into Glick's pick, and then he has his own. So I think he takes Egbuka for sure if with one of those two, if Connor doesn't.
Yeah.
And then my other guess, I will not be surprised if he takes Kaleb Johnson because Ben has Jalen Warren. So then he just has that backfield kind of on lockdown in case something happens. So if he wants to play it safe, he'll do that. Otherwise, I could see him going for kind of a swingy upside if he wants to do somebody like RJ Harvey. Tight end wise, I don't know that he needs that, but again, just kind of one of those things. Yeah, he's got a bunch, so I would not be surprised with even how good. I think he's got Zach Ertz, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he probably just rolls with that rather than wasting. Yeah, so I mean, I would not be surprised for him to roll forward with just those veteran guys and then take a shot on a rookie like an RJ Harvey who could just take over that backfield. But if Connor doesn't take Egbuka, I almost guarantee you Ben with one of those two absolutely does. And then I could see him going Kaleb or probably Tyler Warren or maybe RJ Harvey.
The interesting part is that like Connor kind of needs running back, receiver, or tight end equally, but he's like the last one that I could really see taking a tight end because I don't know who else is going to do it. Like
I don't either.
Ben, like I said, it doesn't have like a lockout one, but he's got 3 different options that I don't think tight end's worth it. Mac has TJ Hawkinson and then Tucker Kraft, who I don't think he's going to do. Nate's got Dalton Kincaid and then Jonnu Smith was a fill-in last year. I don't think Foster has his own pick, but yeah, you have Foster's pick.
I have Foster's.
You're probably, I mean, at that point, you might go your boy Tyler Warren if he slips, and I'm not gonna take Tyler Warren at the 112. So I mean, like it's kind of Connor or you maybe.
Yeah,
and
probably be me because I gotta give up on Kyle Pitts eventually.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, so that's just kind of crazy because it's like him. He's projected in 3 and Loveland's projected in 5, and I don't really see both of them being accurate. So it's kind of one of those situations where like the guys below them are going to get pushed up when they get taken. So if you're waiting on somebody being there, it's probably not going to happen if you're in your own sleeper league, unless just do that kind of thing where you scout out who actually needs tight ends. So I could see Ben splitting like you said. So if we have Egbuka get taken here, I don't think he's going to double up on Henderson and Kaleb. I could see him reaching down to like a Golden or a Burden type of thing and then pushing the RBs up. So but yeah, I really don't know when quarterback's going to go either because same kind of thing. All these guys towards the end have quarterback options. Like we've got Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Hurts. I guess Foster doesn't have his own pick, so it doesn't matter. Yeah, so everybody kind of has their own. So I think these 2 positions are going to get pushed down a lot. But
correct, I'd agree.
We'll update you in a month when we're maybe through our second round in our next pick. So the last thing I wanted to do really quick, and it looks like it's pretty much consensus. We have the same top 12, just in different orders, but just to run through quick, Tyler and I made our own first round mocks just to see like where we would put it if we were picking in a vacuum. So just wanted to run through these here and compare it a little bit. I'll just go pick by pick, but we both had Jeanty first. We both had Amarian second, and I think this was in like a half PPR, just like neutral. So we both do have Amarian second over one of the receivers. That is then followed by Hunter and then Tet for me, and Tet and then Hunter for you. So just kind of flip-flop, picking your poison on swinging for the upside or just going with the lock-in number 1 day 1 starter guy. I wasn't expecting you to do this because I thought I was high on Judkins, but we both have Judkins at 5. So you also feel good putting him over Henderson and then the next few receivers, just based on landing spot or like the Ramondre concern.
Yeah, I mean, I like the landing spot for sure, and again, I think most dynasty drafts, most rookie drafts will go this way, because a lot of times like these individuals in spots, and it seems like running back is starting to kind of make its full circle. The last few years it was like everything wide receiver, and then in just truly this last year it was like, okay, running back starting to come into focus, and so is bell cow. And so in a landing spot like the Browns, where it can be like, hey, this dude is truly just your straight up bell cow, and he did so well with Ohio State. He has so many of the intangible things. I can absolutely see him going there, and Egbuka sliding, because you're going to have to wait a year. So if I'm taking him just based on skill, I'm literally taking Egbuka like 5th, honestly. I mean, I think he's so good, but people don't want to wait that year or potentially 2 years until somebody like Godwin gets moved on from.
Yeah.
But skill and talent wise, like I think he's better than all of these individuals. At some point, you got to take opportunity into account, and volume is king, right? So that's how the running backs get over him for me.
Yeah, totally agree. I think we talked about Egbuka, Golden, and Burden all kind of end up in the same thing of just like, ooh, this hurts their position. Yeah. So we both looks like have Egbuka at 7, so pretty consensus there. I then have Kaleb Johnson at 8. Well, you've got you put Tyler Warren in there, and you've got Tyler at. We have Kaleb and Tyler Warren flip-flopped basically at 8 and 9. So I just think I pushed down the tight end more, but it's kind of one of those where if you have everything else locked up, it makes sense to go for one. It's definitely him over Loveland. I wouldn't be taking Loveland until like mid-second at this point, no matter where he's ranked. So that kind of rounds out our 8, 9, 10. We both have RJ Harvey, so actually very consistent there. And then Golden and Burden. So actually everything is the exact same except for Hunter, Tet flip-flopped, and Egbuka, Tyler Warren flip-flopped. Yeah. So
makes
do
sense.
with that what you will. That seems more consensus than I expecting. I thought there'd be some discussion on that, but no tight end 2, no quarterback 1, no. I'm trying to look at the other guys that are just like missing the cutoff. Basically, we talked about a couple of them.
Yeah, Trey Harris.
Harris
will be right there. I'm trying to think. Who are some of the other ones? I can't
talked about.
Oh yeah.
Scatabo is not up there, obviously. I was hoping he'd go into a better spot because he was the other one I had circled for the end of the first round. But those guys have kind of slipped a little bit more into the second based on their landing. So, and then it really falls off. So it feels like if you kind of don't have anything early second or beyond, it's going to be very just like doesn't matter anymore. Like take whoever you want to take as a flyer. That kind of seems like the top 15 is a very clear tier, and then that's
agreed.
Yeah. So all right, cool.
Great.
We kind of talked about most of these already, so I'm going to just round it out really quickly. I won't go into a lot of elaboration, but I had 3 winners and losers for post-draft as far as fantasy, trying to pick actual vets since we already talked so much about rookies. But my 3 winners I'm locking in for now. Javonte Williams, we talked about from the Cowboys. Bryce Young, just because we got the early first-round wide receiver and his step up from the end of last season. And then Justin Fields, because I'm very, very excited for him to get the keys to the kingdom and see what he does. And then my 3 losers, Najee Harris, we talked about because of Amarian, Jalen McMillan, because they basically just copy pasted him with Egbuka unless Chris Godwin is really that far behind in recovery. And lastly, Cole Kmet, because they also copy and pasted him with Colson Loveland. So no reason they needed to do that with a top 10 pick, but those 3 guys burned basically for me.
Yeah, for me, I had Fields on my winners list as well. I mentioned it earlier, but Brian Robinson, I mean, them bringing no help into that backfield, I thought that was a really good one. So, I mean, if you're just going to give the keys to the backfield and what is obviously an incredible offense with Jaden Daniels there now, and obviously they showed what they can do, and they didn't help them out at all besides adding like Deebo Samuel, that's incredible. I think he's going to be one of those 0 RB guys. For everybody who goes wide receiver early, he's going to be a huge value in redraft this season, in my opinion. And then an interesting one, I mean, that a lot of people didn't think about, DeAndre Swift. The Bears wanted everything to do with a running back, and then they didn't touch the position at all. So there's still a lot of these, like I mentioned earlier, free agent signing rumors of they're going to add somebody to be there with Swift. But if we get all the way to the season and they haven't added anybody, we were both DeAndre Swift haters coming to the season, and we were just wrong. He performed incredibly well and had the volume there. So if this backfield stays the same way as it is now going into the season, DeAndre Swift is going to be a massive value. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, we need to insert the Breaking Bad meme of he can't keep getting away with this.
Yes.
Every year I talk about Swift being a bad pick and not efficient and good. And then it's just I'm still here and I have no competition. And I'm going to force myself into being an RB2.
No question. And then my losers, I mentioned it again earlier, Ramondre. I think it's just going to be even more split work. So if for whatever reason TreVeyon Henderson takes over, he has very similar receiving chops to Ramondre. So it's not that he will take that work from him. It's that if Ramondre continues to screw up with the fumbles and whatnot, TreVeyon can do that. So I think that certainly hurts him and just makes that leash shorter than it was. Same for Najee Harris, and then Godwin. I said as well. Very similar. Jalen McMillan probably makes more sense for impacted than Godwin since he got the contract. But I think either one of those two, it's a sooner Jalen McMillan on the hot seat than Godwin on the hot seat. But we'll see. I think one of them two is going to be in the odd one out.
Yeah, I hope it's not Godwin, because why would you sign him to a 3-year deal and then do this? But
agreed. So it's probably more McMillan, yeah.
Unless, like I said, I think the reports are indicating maybe, like no reports, but like that move indicates to me maybe he is just not as far along in his recovery as they thought. They're like, shoot, now what? So, all right, well, that's enough of that. Thank you all for sticking with us. There was a lot of stuff apparently to cover because we haven't done for like a month and a half, and we did super deep dives. So I promise future off-season Dynasty ones won't be that long because we aren't covering every rookie under the sun. But hopefully this helps with your off-season drafts. Let me know if you're like on the clock or if you are have your draft coming up in a bit and you're like, I got the 105. Like, what would you do out of these two? Or like, if he goes, then what do you pivot to, kind of thing? Because we would love to do real life discussions on those. Otherwise, we'll, I'm sure, have everything reshake up rankings and orders for the rookie drafts by the time we get to August. So let's see, next episode probably sometime in mid-May, end of May, in like a month or so. We can either do the fantasy punishment interview, or we can do your initials game, something non-fantasy, because there's not going to be any NFL news for the next month plus. So we'll take a break on that and we'll keep you guys posted. Let us know any questions or thoughts you have in the meantime, even if it's not rookie draft, if it's just, upcoming season or random debate stuff. We'd love to do those too. A shout out to the Minnesota sports crew. They're still chugging along every week. No off season for them because there's no just football only. So they've been doing a lot of draft coverage stuff as well right now, but also covering the shout out to the T-Wolves in the playoffs and the Wild as well. So go check them out on YouTube and Facebook, and us on YouTube. And that's all I got. So Tyler, you can send us out.
Yeah, welcome back. Football is back. Just for now, but hope everybody enjoys the summer. Like we said, we enjoy this. We started last season with, I think, like 85 to 90 subscribers, and we finished the season with 130. So I mean, that's awesome to see. So we hope we can get up to like 150. So appreciate everything. The listens. If you guys have any questions as we're looking through Dynasty, feel free, send them our way. As we get closer to the season, we'll certainly do more rankings as far as like tier rankings and team reviews and things like that. So hopefully you guys stick with us. Hopefully you enjoyed that. But if you have any questions, send them our way. But for now, we'll let you guys go and enjoy the summer. And we'll see you guys again in August. Peace out, Pod Squad.
Can't wait. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Brotherly Ballers podcast. Check out more content on youtube.com/@thebrotherlyballers.